Welcome to Make Music Now. My name is Eddie Heidenrich. I'm a Pro Tools instructor and professional composer. On this DVD, we'll be focusing on making music with the new Pro Tools 8 software. Pro Tools 8 has an updated look as well as a ton of great new features, like a dedicated MIDI editing window, a score editor, new virtual instruments, and a lot more. On the DVD, we've included plenty of chapter markers for easy navigation and pop-up windows with keyboard shortcuts for both Mac and Windows. Before we dive into the software, let's talk a little bit about the Pro Tools product line and what's included with your Pro Tools system. Pro Tools has three basic levels: the Professional HD product line, Pro Tools LE, and M-Powered for the project and home studio and aspiring professional. All of these systems are capable of producing great sounding tracks. We'll be using an LE system on this DVD, but the concepts and techniques we demonstrate can be applied to all Pro Tools systems. Our setup includes a Digi-003, M-Audio Axiom keyboard, M-Audio monitors, a couple of great guitars from McPherson and Anderson Guitar Works, and some Freeport acoustic baffles from Prime Acoustic. Your new Pro Tools software includes everything you need to start making music right away. Lots of plugins, new virtual instruments, and a ton of loops and samples. Inside, you'll find a quick start guide for easy setup. You might want to take a few moments now and get set up before we get into the software. To help you along, let's take a look at some of the physical connections involved in setting up a Pro Tools system. Of course, these will vary depending on your individual hardware setup, but let's check out the basics. Audio peripherals usually connect via USB or FireWire. One exception to this is HD systems, which utilize PCI slots in your computer for dedicated DSP cards and connect directly to your audio interfaces. Your audio interface may have mic, line, DI, or all three types of connections. This is where you'll connect microphones, keyboards, and modules, as well as guitars and other instruments. Let's connect our vocal mic, in this case an M-Audio Luna, to input number 1 on the back of the 003. On the M-Box, the connection is very similar. And we'll connect a small condenser mic, an M-Audio Pulsar 2, to mic input 2 for recording acoustic guitar or other live instruments. You'll want to check your documentation to see if your mics require a 48-volt fan and power. Both of ours do, so I'll turn fan and power on after connecting my microphones. We'll connect our electric guitar using the DI connector on input number 3. There are also standard line level inputs for keyboards, modules, or effects processors. MIDI connections are either made directly via USB or FireWire or through a MIDI interface using standard MIDI cables. You'll need to connect your powered loudspeakers or amp and speakers to the main monitor output of your audio interface. When powering up your system, make sure to turn on all your external peripherals first, like audio interfaces, external hard drives, and MIDI devices. Then start your computer and turn on your amp or powered speakers last. When powering down, do the exact opposite. Turn off your amplification system, shut down your computer, then turn off external hard drives and other peripherals. Once you're connected, you'll need to make sure your computer recognizes your MIDI devices. Mac and Windows machines have slightly different methods of MIDI setup. On the PC, you use the MIDI Studio Setup window that's built into the Pro Tools application. On the Mac, you use the Audio MIDI Setup application that comes with OS X. This is located on your Macintosh hard drive in the Applications folder inside the Utilities folder. Here we can see the 003 and our M-Audio Axiom keyboard. Now that all of our audio and MIDI devices are happening, it's time to make some music. Let's get ready to create a session in Pro Tools. A session is a document that holds a Pro Tools project. This can be anything from a simple voiceover to a full film score. We'll start by launching Pro Tools. Just double-click on the Pro Tools icon in the DigiDesign folder on your hard drive, or click any shortcut you might create on the PC desktop or Macintosh dock. Pro Tools lets you choose from session templates, recent sessions, and other options when it launches. We're going to start with a blank session so you can see how we create tracks, add instruments, and build up a session from scratch in Pro Tools. We can open the Session Parameters area to choose our file format and sample rate. The options available here will depend on your hardware. We'll stick with the defaults and click OK to open up a new session. It's always a good idea to use a separate dedicated hard drive for audio. I'll navigate to my audio hard drive, name the session, and click Save. Since we started with a blank session, the first thing we need to do is create some tracks. I'll go to the Track menu and choose New, or better yet, use the keyboard shortcut, Shift-Command-N on the Mac or Shift-Control-N on Windows. Let's start simple, with 4 mono audio tracks, and we can continue to add additional tracks by clicking on the plus button. Of course, we can always return to the Track menu and create new tracks at any time during our session. Now, let's take a quick look at the Pro Tools user interface, starting with the Edit window. The Edit window is where we'll edit and arrange all of our audio and MIDI data. We'll be spending a lot of time here, so let's take a closer look. On the left, we can see all the tracks that we just created in the Tracks list. Along the top are the different modes and tools that we'll use to edit and arrange our data. A counter display, and a set of transport controls. Along the right-hand column is our Regions list, which contains all the audio and MIDI data that we record or import into our session. The main part of the Edit window contains the Track playlist, where we will edit our audio, MIDI, and automation data. Above that are the rulers that provide location, tempo, and other information such as markers, key changes, and even chords. All of our windows are available from the Window menu. Let's switch to our other primary window, the Mix window. The Mix window provides a familiar mixer-style view where we can easily set and automate our levels and pan positions, as well as create sends and returns or add plug-in effects. Command equal on the Mac or Control equal on the PC will switch between the Mix and Edit windows. This is a keyboard shortcut you're going to use a lot. Pro Tools also provides a floating transport window with controls for record, play, rewind, and other standard functions. Of course, we can control these as well as access our windows, faders, and much more from a control surface like the 003. There are 3 basic ways to get sound into Pro Tools. You can import sounds like drum loops and samples, record instruments and vocals, or play virtual instruments or tone generators using a MIDI controller. We'll use all 3 of these methods in our song demo. Pro Tools is a versatile application used in film, television, radio, multimedia, music, and about any other audio application you can think of. Depending on the project you're working on, you might want to view timecode, minutes and seconds, bars and beats, or even samples. The Rulers area of the Edit window lets us choose which rulers we would like to display for our session. I can just click the drop-down arrow and show or hide any of our rulers. We'll work mainly in bars and beats, but it might be nice to see minutes and seconds too, to see how long the song is running. A quick way to put away rulers you don't need is to Option-click on the Mac or Alt-click on the PC directly on the ruler to hide it. One of the first things I like to do is find a basic tempo for my song. I'll click the down arrow in my transport window to show the MIDI controls. Make sure the conductor is off for now. Click in the tempo field and just tap the T key on my keyboard to get a tempo set to the groove I'm thinking of for the song.
Okay, around 98 beats per minute feels about right.
Since I want to start with an acoustic guitar groove, I'm going to create a click track to play along with. Let's go to the track menu and choose Create Click Track. We'll also make sure the main counter is set to bars and beats and set a 1-bar count off. I'll just type 1 and click OK. Now let's switch to the mix window and get ready to record. We'll double-click the track name and rename it to McPherson Guitar 1. Since our guitar mic is in Mic Input 2, we'll select Analog 2 from the Input Channel selector. To make this more intuitive, let's right-click on Analog 2 and rename it Instrument Mic. And on the 003, we'll make sure it's set to mic and not DI. Now I'll put the track into Record Ready and turn up the gain on Input 2 on the 003 while I check the meters for a good level. We'll do most of our mixing later, but I'll make some minor adjustments to pan and level as we go. I'll highlight Count In and click Record and Play to start recording. Now that we have a recording, let's choose Save from the File menu or use the keyboard shortcut to save our work. Now I'm going to go back and double that part so we have a nice thick acoustic part as the backbone of our song. I'll set the channel input, name the track, and go back into Record. Now that we've done some live recording, let's look at the second way to get sound into Pro Tools, importing loops, MIDI data, or samples. There are a number of ways to do this in Pro Tools, but the most versatile way is by using the powerful Workspace browser. I'll choose Workspace from the window menu. The Workspace allows me to search for any kind of file or navigate to folders that I've created for samples that I've downloaded or copied from CD. I can audition any of these files just by selecting them and hitting the spacebar. Pro Tools has a very cool feature called Elastic Time. If I click the Audio Files Conform to Session Tempo icon, that's the icon that looks like a metronome at the top of the browser window, I can choose an elastic algorithm that will allow me to audition loops in sync with my session while the session plays back. I'll choose Rhythmic, and I can right-click on the speaker icon to have it loop while I play back. A very cool feature. Now I can drag this into a blank area of the Edit window or to my Tracks list, and Pro Tools will create a track for me and automatically conform the loop to my session tempo. Nice! I'll go ahead and import some additional drum loops for the tune, as well as some other samples. We'll just drop these in the Regions list for now. Let's look at the third way of getting sounds into a session, MIDI recording. MIDI is different from audio. MIDI records data that represents notes, velocities, pitch bend, or other performance information. I'll start by adding a stereo instrument track, and I'll click on the View selector just above my first track, and I'll add Instrument and Insert columns to my Edit window views. Next, I'll go to my first insert, down to Instruments, and check out my choices. Pro Tools comes with lots of cool virtual instruments, like DB33, a great new organ plugin. DB33 comes with lots of cool presets organized into styles like jazz, funk, gospel, and rock. It's also easy to change the drawbar settings. They default to MIDI controller maps, but we can easily map the controls to a MIDI keyboard. Just hold Control on the Mac or Start on the PC, choose Learn, and move the appropriate control on your keyboard. You can also change percussion settings, cabinet characteristics, and much more. Vacuum is a cool analog synth program that comes with Pro Tools 8. It's great for making killer analog synth sounds and easy to map to your keyboard for real-time control. It's great for leads, basses, and all kinds of other cool analog sounds. It comes with a built-in arpeggiator, and there's a lot of internal routing options. Another really cool plugin is Boom. It's a retro-style programmable drum machine. It's great for programming beats, and it syncs directly to your Pro Tools session. It also comes with a lot of cool grooves to get you started. Let's check out the new Expand 2. There's nice leads, cool pads, arpeggios, and even special effects, and just about anything else you could think of. Really, there's enough to do a complete tune just with Expand 2. MiniGrand is a new killer piano plugin that comes with Pro Tools 8. We'll use this in our track. Let's tweak the settings for a bright piano with a studio reverb setting. This plugin has a great piano sound. I'll turn on Count In and start recording. Before we start editing and overdubbing additional parts, let's look at some quick ways to get around our session. Playing back our audio is easy. We can simply click play on the transport, hit our spacebar, or use our 003 transport controls. We can also click anywhere on our track using our selector tool and begin playback from that point. Another easy way is to type star on the numeric keypad, type in a bar number,
and hit Enter to navigate to a specific bar or beat.
Since I've played through the arrangement on the acoustic guitar, I'll go ahead and place some markers to help me organize the arrangement.
I can click the down arrow in the rulers area to show or hide any of the rulers. Let's make sure markers is showing. I'll hit rewind to 0 on the transport and then hit the Enter key on the numeric keypad to place a marker at bar 1, and I'll name it Intro. Next I'll hit star on the numeric keypad, type 9, and name it Verse 1. I'll use the same method to mark the other major sections of our tune. Now let's go to the Window menu and show our Memory Locations window.
I can simply click on any location and navigate instantly to that section of the song. This will make it easy when it comes time to overdub or add additional parts. Another way to navigate our session is using the Universe view. This can be especially handy on large sessions. Editing is the way to adjust data you've recorded so you can transform a basic recording into a great performance. You might want to fade sounds in or out, transpose sections of music, or tighten up a performance by making notes fall in time with the groove. You can do all this and much more in Pro Tools. We'll start by building out our drum tracks while we learn about editing modes and tools. There are 4 different modes in Pro Tools, and we're always operating in one of these modes, so let's take a look. We'll start with Slip Mode. In Slip Mode, I can freely move my audio and MIDI regions around. This is great for fine-tuning the feel of a track, ultimate flexibility. If we turn on Shuffle Mode, Pro Tools will shuffle the regions together. If I drop a region in between these two, Pro Tools will shuffle the other region back. Next, let's switch to Grid Mode and turn on the grid display. Grid Mode lets us choose a grid resolution and apply it to our session. I'll choose quarter note, and you can see the screen divided into quarter note grid lines. Now if I drag this drum fill in, you can see it snap to the grid lines. This makes it easy to snap into place here at bar 16. The last mode we'll look at is Spot Mode. This is great for precise placement. I'll create a new track and call it Crash 1. And I'll drag this crash symbol out of the regions list and drop it anywhere in the track. When the spot dialog comes up, I'll just type in 17 to place this crash at bar 17, beat 1. Let's go ahead and spot the chorus drums to bar 17 too. I'll go ahead and spot up some more crash symbols, and then we'll come back and get into some more editing. Let's go back into Grid Mode for now and look at a couple of cool editing commands. I want to extend my chorus loop forward. I'll choose the grabber tool and select it so it's highlighted and choose Duplicate from the Edit menu. Command D on the Mac or Control D on Windows. I'll just duplicate this a few more times to fill out the chorus. Here's another technique for making a quick copy. I'll hold Option on the Mac or Alt on Windows while I drag my verse drum part over to bar 29 where the next verse starts. Easy. This time, instead of duplicating, we'll go to the Edit menu and choose Repeat. And type in 3. This is great when you need a lot of copies. Since we're still getting a feel for modes and tools, let's take our zoomer and zoom in on verse 2. I'll just click, hold, and drag. Now I'll switch to the grabber. Make sure I'm still in Grid Mode and snap Drum Fill 2
to bar 36. I'll go ahead and fill out our drums and cymbal tracks, and we'll get ready to add some percussion and learn some new editing tricks. Let's take our selector and select the intro section. I'll also choose Loop Playback from the Options menu or by right-clicking the play button and selecting it. Now let's loop the intro while we check out some percussion. Again, I've got Conform to Tempo and Loop Playback turned on in the browser. This shaker sounds good, so I'll drag it to the tracks list and Pro Tools will create a new track and conform the tempo for us. Notice that Pro Tools named the track after our region and applied the elastic property Rhythmic that was selected in the workspace. It also created the track as tick-based, which means it will follow our tempo if we change it. Let's make sure our other tracks are set to tick-based, and we'll choose the elastic property that seems most appropriate for the material. How about monophonic for these cymbals and polyphonic for the guitars and rhythmic for the drums and percussion? Now I can slow the tempo down or speed it up. And Pro Tools will follow my changes with MIDI and digital audio tracks. This gives me total flexibility as a composer, songwriter, or remixer. All right, let's extend this shaker pattern, but this time we'll utilize a new method. Let's go to our trimmer tool and click on it to select the options, and we'll choose the loop trimmer. Now I'll click and hold in the upper part of the shaker pattern and just drag it out all the way to the chorus. Now this is a totally new approach, and notice as I trim the lower part of any of the loops, they all change accordingly. This is the new preferred way of doing loop editing. This sounds good, but I'd like to double time it in the chorus section. Let's make a selection from bar 16 to bar 17 and duplicate it. Now I'll go back to the trimmer, but this time I'll choose the TCE or Time Compression Expansion trimmer. I'm still in grid mode, so I'll just trim this in half to beat 3. That's easy. And now let's switch back to the loop trimmer and just trim this double timed part out through the chorus. I'll finish editing the shaker part and create new tracks for tambourine and hand claps. Let's drag the new parts into bar 17 at the first chorus. Remember, we're still in grid mode, so these snap easily to the bar and beat boundaries. I can see the hand claps are a bit long, so I'll just use the TCE trimmer to trim them to fit into 2 bars. Now let's use the loop trimmer to trim them out to fill the chorus. Again, we can see how handy the grid is for making sure things fit in the exact number of bars that are needed. Now that we have several percussion tracks that we want to use in the chorus, let's group these regions together. I'll select these parts by shift-clicking with the grabber. Now I'll go to the Region menu and choose Group. Next, I'll option drag these to the other chorus and lead sections and trim as needed. Now that we've got a solid foundation with drums and percussion, let's add our bass part. For this, I'll create another instrument track, add Expand 2, and dial in a nice electric bass sound. I want the bass to come in at the first verse, but this time I'm going to use pre-roll instead of just turning on the one-bar count-off. Pre-roll will let me hear my track before I need to come in. I'll turn on pre-roll and type in 1 bar and enter. Next, I'll add an organ part using the cool new DB33 plugin. I'll just locate to verse 1, pre-roll is still turned on, and I'll start recording. Now that we have MIDI piano, organ, and bass tracks in our session, let's take a look at some of the ways we can work with MIDI data in Pro Tools. This is a really deep area with a lot of possibilities. We can't cover everything, but let's look at some of the basics and some of the cool new features in Pro Tools 8. We'll start with our piano track. If I click on the arrow here above the track names again, I can choose to show the MIDI real-time properties. Here I can apply quantization, duration, delay, velocity, and transposition functions in real time without having to permanently apply them to my track. I'll choose a groove template from the Quantize menu and apply it to my piano track. Now, let's double-click this region with the grabber to bring up the new MIDI editor. Pro Tools 8 includes a dedicated MIDI editor window. We have the same familiar modes and tools to make editing easy. Let's adjust the durations of a few of these notes. I'll just use the trim tool to drag these notes in and shorten their length. Now, below my note data, I can add lanes for controller data that I want to view or edit. Let's start by looking at our velocity information. And let's add an additional lane to see our sustain data. I'll drag on the keyboard display to select these notes. Now that all the notes are selected, I can just click on one and drag it up or down to change the velocities. The new MIDI editor is very cool and a much anticipated feature in Pro Tools 8. If we take a close look in the left-hand corner of the MIDI editor, we see a 16th note icon that takes us into the new score editor. Here we can switch between MIDI and score views. Of course, we could also open the score editor from the window menu. The new score editor provides a standard notation style editing window. Before we start editing, let's take a minute and set up the score window. I'll click the drop-down arrow next to the tracks here and choose Score Setup. Let's title our score, and I'll add my name next to composer. I'll also add a little space below title and composer. This window gives us full control over our spacing and page layout. We can even add guitar chords to the new chord ruler and have them reflected in our score. Let's add some basic bar chords. You can see there's a lot of choices here for proper chord voicings. Let's double these piano notes an octave up to fatten this lineup a bit. I'll just select them in the score editor, hold down Shift Option on the Mac or Shift Alt on the PC, and drag these up the staff into position. These new windows add serious MIDI editing power to Pro Tools 8. In fact, you might want to have access to them almost all the time. If we go back to the Edit window and to the drop-down arrow here in the upper right-hand corner, we can dock the MIDI editor to the Edit window and view either the MIDI or score editor windows. We can also go to the drop-down arrow in the MIDI editor and have it follow the Edit window during playback. Nice! With our MIDI editing behind us, it's time to record our electric guitar and vocal parts. Let's hide the instrument and real-time property columns and show the I/O column. I can simply Option or Alt-click on the column names to hide them. Since our Anderson electric guitar is plugged into analog input 3 on the Digi003, we'll make sure it's set to DI instead of mic. Let's also right-click again on the input and rename it Electric Guitar. And we'll rename Analog 1 and 2 to Control Room. First, let's record our intro piece. I'll name the track Anderson Guitar 1. I want to dial in a sound, so I'm going to call up 11 free, and I'll choose the Vintage Crunch setting. And I'll follow that with a delay. Since this part comes in at bar 1, we'll go back to using the 1-bar count-off for now. Next, I'll lay down the wah rhythm part and the bridge, and we'll come back for the lead section. This time we'll go back and make a selection over the lead section where we want Pro Tools to punch in and out of record. Let's finish recording by tracking our vocals. Our M-Audio Luna microphone is in input 1. We'll name the track Lead Vocal and rename the input to Vocal Mic. We'll also make sure the 003 is set to mic and not DI, and we'll bring the gain up enough for a hot signal, but not enough to clip.
What you mean to me?
Now I'll locate to verse 1, set up a 1-bar pre-roll, and we're ready to go.
It's the way that you smile. It's the scent of your skin. When I open my arms and you fall right in. It's how you laugh at my jokes, the way you get what I mean. I know it's not much, it's only everything. It's only everything, all those little things. Can you understand what you mean to me? It's only everything that makes me wanna know you. I can try to tell you, but I'd rather show you. Yeah, I'd rather show you.
Next I'll locate to the choruses and record a harmony part, and we'll come back to check out some more editing options.
It's only everything. It's only everything. All those little things. Can you understand what you mean to me? It's only everything that makes me.
We've seen how Elastic Time can conform files to our session tempo, and even adjust digital audio and MIDI tracks to match our tempo changes. Let's take a look at some ways we might use Elastic Time in the editing process. When editing, it can be really useful to resize our tracks to see more of the waveform. If I just click in the margin, I can choose all kinds of different track sizes, depending on the task at hand. In this case, I'll settle on Jumbo. In the next section, we'll delete the last breath of the song and use warping to fill in some of the gap. I'll start out in slip mode, and I'll zoom in on the end of the vocal track. I'll switch to the selector tool and play back over the breath.
It's only everything.
I'll find the last breath and make a selection, and either hit delete on my keyboard or choose clear from the edit menu. Next, I'll make sure Elastic Audio is turned on, and I'll choose the monophonic algorithm and switch my view to warp. Now let's zoom in on the end of this and find the beginning of the word every.
It's only everything. Everything.
And we'll control or start click there with the grabber to place a warp marker. Now, let's place another warp marker at the end of the region. Now we can simply stretch this word out to take up some of the space that was used by the breath. We could stretch it out all the way, but that wouldn't sound natural. Let's go about 1/3 of the way in. Next, let's go to the end of the guitar solo around bar 63. We could use any of our navigational techniques to get there, but let's type star 63 and enter on the numeric keypad. We'll make sure Elastic Audio is on, and we'll choose the monophonic plugin. And we'll set the track to jumbo. Now let's resize the track and go into Warp View. And we'll zoom in on the last note. Now let's Control-click with the grabber to place a warp marker at the beginning of the last note. And we'll place another marker at the end of the region. Now let's give this a pretty extreme stretch into the final chorus of the song.
It's only everything, all those little things. It's only everything.
We're just beginning to tap into the potential of elastic time. There's a lot of great examples of different ways to use elastic time on DigiDesign's website. Another elastic property is elastic pitch. With elastic pitch, you can easily transpose samples to match the key of the music in our session, create special effects, or even create harmonies.
Let's jump to bar 63 and work with our background vocal tracks. Not all settings support elastic pitch, so we'll make sure the Elastic plugin is set to polyphonic for these tracks. Next, we'll separate the words or syllables. We'll divide understand into 3 separate parts. I can click with the selector and right-click to choose separate right on the syllable. I'll repeat that for each syllable. And 1 separation at the end. Now I can select a region and go to the Region menu and choose Elastic Properties. And we'll use Elastic Pitch to shift this down, -4, -3, and -4 semitones again for this last part.
Can you understand what you mean to me?
Now that we've explored recording and done some editing, it's time to talk about mixing. In the mixing stage, you work with tracks to adjust their levels and pan positions while adding effects and polishing the performance to a point where it's ready to finalize and share.
Let's start by revisiting these acoustic tracks and making sure they're panned wide. We'll also make sure the backup vocals are panned left and right. And let's place some of these percussion tracks in the stereo field also. Cymbals, claps, tambourine, the shaker, and so on. We'll also adjust the overall levels of some of these tracks. We want to make sure the lead vocal pops, so let's add a little air to the sound with EQ3. I'll choose EQ3 from the Inserts pop-up menu, and we'll boost the high end a little bit.
It's only everything, all those little things. Can you understand what you mean to me? It's only
Let's also add a little punch to these drum loops with the Bomb Factory BF76.
tell you, but I'd rather show you. Yeah, I'd rather show you.
Now it's finally time to use that auxiliary track. We're going to insert the new Air Reverb plugin on our auxiliary. And we'll name the track Reverb Return. Next, we'll set the input to our return to bus 1 and 2. And we'll use the sends on our vocal tracks to send some of the vocal signal to our reverb. This is a common mixing technique and much more efficient than inserting a reverb on every track.
Take it slowly, let me show you. Take it slowly, let me show you everything.
The amount of bus send controls the amount of reverb level.
Take it slowly, let me show you. Take it slowly, let me show you everything. Take it slowly, let me show you.
We've used the Air Reverb plugin and the Air Delay, but you'll want to check out all the new Air plugins for some great options in creative mixing.
Pro Tools has the ability to automate nearly everything you can think of. We can record fader or pan moves, on screen or with a control surface, and even automate things like equalizers and delays, or any other plugins.
We can edit automation graphically. Let's change the playlist view on this guitar track to volume. Now I can just click on the volume display with the grabber, add and adjust data points.
Take it slowly, let me show you. Take it
Or even go to the pencil tool and draw in automation.
wanna show you everything. It's only
We can also record our movements in real time. Let's record our master fader doing a quick fade at the end of this tune. I'll just put the automation mode for this channel in touch, so it waits for me to touch the fader to start recording, and I'll begin playback.
it's only everything.
Now we can switch views to the edit window and see the automation we recorded and edit it if necessary.
It's only everything.
You can easily spend quite a bit of time perfecting a mix, and with the options available in Pro Tools, there are no real limits beyond your own ears and imagination. Once you have a mix you're happy with, the next step is to create a file you can share. In this step, we take our multi-track mix and create a final file we can share on CDs, iTunes, or any other format.
Let's start by selecting our whole song up to the final fade on our master fader. Next, we'll go to the File menu and choose Bounce to Disk. We can choose our file format and other parameters here. We'll choose 16-bit, WAV, and 44.1 to prepare this for a CD. We might choose 48K if this were for a video production, or MP3 for internet streaming. We'll choose Bounce, name our file, and Pro Tools will create a mixed version of our song, ready to burn to CD.
In this intro video, we've only scratched the surface. There are plenty of opportunities to grow your Pro Tools studio and customize it to your own needs and style. There's a huge developer community offering fantastic plugins that cover virtually every type of instrument and effect. Some reproduce classic gear, while others create completely new and unexplored sonic territories. DigiDesign also offers a number of specialized toolkits to expand your Pro Tools studio with additional tracks, plugins, and functionality. Rest assured, there's plenty of support in the Pro Tools community, user groups, forums, and training partners all over the world. Check out all the options at digidesign.com. Thanks for joining us on Make Music Now, and have a great time making music with Pro Tools.
Show